Okay, so you've mastered the eNPS survey, the engagement survey, and now it's time for my favorite, the pulse survey. I want you to think of this survey format as your corporate bloodhound. If eNPS tells you, how's everybody generally feeling? And your engagement survey shows you where in the employee experience you're falling short, your pulse survey tells you what exactly is wrong and what is it going to take to fix it. And a common mistake I see is companies just send an engagement survey and then they don't ask anything else for the rest of the year and they think they have enough information to fix things. But that survey is just a very broad look at the entire employee experience. The pulse survey is sent in addition to get a laser focus on what exactly is the breakdown, where are we falling short, what would it look like for us to do better for you guys? So let's talk about some best practices, shall we? When you're going to send this is in the off months of your engagement and your eNPS survey. So if eNPS is quarterly and your engagement is annual, the months in between there, you're going to send a pulse survey. And I know that sounds like a lot, but here's the good news. You get to keep these super short. I love this format because it's the easiest and it actually gives you the most information that's like actionable. So it's 3 to 5 questions. And you're going to want to use open-ended questions. A bad example of a question you wouldn't want to ask is, does your manager give you feedback? Because as the employee, I can say yes, or no, or sort of. And that's not really telling you anything useful. So you want to ask open-ended questions like, what kind of feedback would feel meaningful from your manager? Because what I'm going to tell you in there is likely way outside the scope of what you would have even come up with yourself, things that you wouldn't have even considered. And you're going to get a lot more detail and information and find patterns for how people prefer to receive feedback so that you can maybe put together a manager training. So make sure you're asking open-ended questions. And you're going to pick one aspect of your engagement survey that you scored low on to send a pulse survey on. So here's what I mean. Let's pretend this was your engagement survey results. In the last lesson, I taught you how to find your average score for each of Gallup's 12 questions to ask. And I color-coded these because we're going to pretend these were your results. Anything in red is not good. We need to address this ASAP. So anything that scored 1 to 2, I put in red. In orange is 2 to 3. It's like, okay, this isn't great. We should focus on this pretty soon too. In yellow, 3 to 4, it scored. And it's like, okay, we're kind of doing this okay. And we should consider in the future addressing this and figuring out ways to do better. And then green is like 4 to 5, hey, we're doing this decently well. It's not an emergency. I'm sure we can do better, but like this isn't something that our employees are crying out for help on. So as you look at your averages for each question, which again, we taught you in the engagement survey lesson, revisit that if you don't know how to do that. It's very easy. You will find that your lowest scoring statements here, you're going to have some choices to make. So if these were your lowest scoring statements from your Gallup survey, which one would you pick first? We've got, I know it's expected of me at work. My supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. And this last year, I had opportunities to learn and grow. So which do you pick? Don't guess, because remember, it maps directly to the employee hierarchy of needs that Gallup also built. And this is why when companies focus on career mapping, sounds really nice in theory, but if employees don't know what's expected of them at work, or if their supervisor, they're not feeling connected to their supervisor, they can't imagine themselves growing at your company. So this is why sometimes your employee initiatives can flop on accident, because you're like, what do I pick? Let me pick on something that would be super visible. Let's just figure out a path for everyone to grow. Just like you can't be a pop star on stage performing for people if you're naked and afraid and alone out in the woods and starving. You have to make sure certain needs are being met in order so that you make the greatest impact. So if it was me, I would pick the bottom of the hierarchy first. I know this is listed first here in this slide, so I hope this isn't confusing, but I know it's expected of me at work is at the bottom. I listed these in the same order. So like the bottom of the pyramid is the first bullet here. I would focus on this first. I would move to this second because it also scored low, and it seems very related to if you don't know what's expected of you at work and your manager doesn't care about you as a person, those seem a little related. And then here's where I want you to think a little differently. This one, opportunities at work to learn and grow, I wouldn't work on this. I would do this later. Like, I wouldn't focus on it very soon, but I would mention it in the all hands and tell everyone, hey, we heard you, that this was something that you want. So in order for this to make sense for us to create for you, we're going to fix some other things first. But, just giving employees the nod that you heard them, that is what they need to hear. And you can put a pin in something. I would work on this second bullet here. I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. This almost scored in the 1 point to 2 point quadrant section. And it's very low on the employee hierarchy of needs, that a need that needs to be met. It's the second one here. So I would prioritize that. I would prioritize that third. This is where it can kind of become an art form too. So you're going to make some decisions. You're going to make some trades and bets, and you're going to get pretty good at it. So you don't have to be perfect, but if an executive tries to force you to do career mapping, but you have other parts of your engagement survey that scored really low, you have to push back and say, let me show you the hierarchy of needs. There's a reason I shouldn't do this first, and it's going to directly impact revenue and productivity if we give them something they're not ready for. So when you send a pulse survey, you're going to just pick one of these. So like this would be its own pulse survey. Then another month, this would be its own pulse survey, and so on and so on. So what I've done for you in a resource that's in the description below, I've created a cheat sheet quick guide for you. I created the open-ended questions that you would ask for each of Gallup's Q12 statements. So I built these based on what I was needing, and they're already written in open-ended format. So you don't have to think too hard about it, and you can feel free to tweak them. You don't have to ask exactly these, but my point here is you don't want to jump around. You're not going to pick send pulse survey questions for like all of these. You're not going to send a pulse survey that asks a question about this and asks a question about this and asks a question about this, and those are your 3 questions. That is bad. Because, okay, let's not be negative, Christy. That is not best practice, because you're going to get confused and you're asking for data on different stuff and you're not going to work on it all right away. So you want to get super focused and where'd my mouse go? You want to get all the information you can about one piece here so that you can get super clear. So what's great about the resource that was created for you is these are questions tailored to, like, is it a manager issue? Is it a goals issue? Is it a communication and transparency issue? I have worked in every industry. I have been in frontline companies. I have been in 40-person tech startups. I've been an executive. I've been an intern. But there were clear patterns across my whole career where certain things were not happening the way that they should be. And I pulled from that to create these questions for you. But you can absolutely go outside of this. Just make sure it's an open-ended question. Make sure it's written in an easy to understand way. Throw it in ChatGPT if you have to, and just be like, is there a simpler way to ask this? Be very, very cautious when you make up your own questions, and make sure you're not being redundant, and that can confuse employees. And just keep it to 3 to 5 questions. I love the pulse survey because you don't have to score it. It doesn't have a lot of like technicalities to it. You just get to get super curious. You get all the raw information straight from the employees' mouths about what's unfolding on teams and in daily life that you would have no way of knowing existed. And the great part is now you don't have to think too hard about what to ask because we've made it super simple for you. So let's just quickly hit on the pros and the cons of pulse surveys. One of the pros is obviously it gets to the real root of the issues. it gets really, really clear and specific. It's quick, it's short, it's 3 to 5 questions. It's just really no nonsense. It's like super simple. You should be excited about these because it's just like, again, it's just like straight from the employees' mouths. It's such valuable data, less than scoring things and looking at benchmarking. That's important too, but you're going to hear in people's actual words what's wrong. And I mentioned this before, but there's no scoring involved. So if you're like me and you hate math, this is not something that you have to report on necessarily. It's just the answers to the disengagement test. It's the inverse. If you fix for this stuff, you'll drive engagement. One of the cons that you need to remember is that executives are going to think you're sending too many surveys. And if this happens to you, I've included in the resource below a script that you can use, like a scenario role play of if they're like, you just sent an engagement survey. Now you're sending another survey. What are you doing? It's a huge mistake for employees to stop at the engagement survey. There's still more information to be gathered and you're so close. Plus, if you're building trust with your employees and following through with what you did, employees don't care. If they see another survey, they're like, great, they do something with this information. But if you don't get good at explaining the why, employees will have survey fatigue. So if you're just sending out surveys and not telling employees what's in it for them, they're not going to care, okay? But to be super, super clear, there is no such thing as survey fatigue when you do your surveys correctly. But there is reckless survey sending. If you can't just tell employees what to do because they're going to resist. You have to tell them what's in it for them. So you can send as many surveys as you want, so long as you are closing the loop and like following up and sharing the high level results and the patterns that you found and thanking them for taking the survey. If they see action being, put into place, they're going to get it and they're going to trust you. But if you send out surveys without re-following up, like what you're going to do with the information, then you create survey fatigue. So I have an example for you in the resource where at your all hands, you can explain the why. And it even touches on, you can address it right away, like right out the gate. We're not survey crazy. We just want to make sure this is a great place to work for you. We're sending a follow-up survey. So remember these surveys, all your surveys should always be anonymous, but there's a way to frame them. I'm framing this differently than I had you frame the engagement survey. I'm telling you kind of exactly what to say, whether it's verbal. I also have email templates in there for you in the resource to make sure everyone gets what you're doing. And you're not just like dealing with low participation and people who are just getting annoyed. So the biggest takeaway for this lesson is that your pulse surveys are purely qualitative in nature. So that's what's super duper helpful. And in the AI lesson coming up, I'll teach you how you can copy all the qualitative data and paste it into ChatGPT and be like, what are the takeaways? It's a much faster way to operate. But it's those details in these answers that are going to really help make sure you're picking the right stuff to work on. It's like adding color to your engagement survey. So my question I want to ask is, are you starting to see the difference between these formats? Do you get the difference between eNPS, engagement, and pulse surveys? Do you feel more clear? Did you feel lost before? And are you starting to see the difference in how they all complement each other? Okay. That was pulse surveys. I will see you in the next lesson.